Foundation Radio is brought to you by 10th Ward Barbershop, a full-service barbershop offering high-quality haircuts, beard trims, and hot shaves. 10th Ward Barbershop proudly serves the historic Lawrenceville, 10th Ward, and surrounding Pittsburgh areas. Adam frequents 10th Ward Barbershop when he swings through the area and loves Ryan Kane's laser-sharp precision on both his hair and beard needs. But you don't have to take his word for it. WWE superstars Finn Balor and Corey Graves frequent 10th Ward Barbershop for their hair and beard needs. The team at 10th Ward accepts walk-ins, but schedules fill up quickly, so the best way to see them is to make an appointment at 10thwardbarbershop.com. That's 10thwardbarbershop.com. Make sure to grab some Silk Panther hair products in-shop or online while you're there. Schedule your appointment today to see Kane, Jordan, and the rest of the team at 10th Ward Barbershop today, and we thank them for sponsoring the program.
World, and welcome to Foundation Radio. My name is Adam Barnard. Thank you so much for joining us again. And my guest today is my friend, the writer for The Ringer. He is the host of the South Kongress Podcast, the wrestling scribe extraordinaire, and co-chair, I'll have you know, with Sir Wilkins of the Sting Fan Club. Cameron Hawkins is here. Cam, how are you, sir? Great to see you.
I'm doing all right, man. It's good to see you too. Absolutely.
Everything is good here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know you've been very busy, but I want to talk to you first at the top of the show about your LA Knight piece. Fantastic read. If you haven't had a chance to go and check it out, you can go check it out right now at The Ringer. You can also check it out on Cam's Twitter account, because I'm never calling it X. It's on Twitter at Seahawk. Tell me about that experience, and tell me about some of the feedback that you've had since the piece has been released.
Yeah, so and you've been doing this for a while, so sometimes things don't always line up exactly like they're supposed to. Like, I get a call from my guy Greg Domino over there in WWE Communications. He's like, "All right, I got him on the phone." I was like, "On the phone?" He's like, "I got him on the phone." I'm like, "But we got to record this, Greg. Like, what do you?" He's like, "Okay, but what?" And so I had to literally like grab my other phone. I had to get the bat phone and my iPad, and so I'm recording them off voice memo.
Right.
And I'm like, this is not going to work. Long story short, like, transcription software is very racist, because like LA Knight, like, white guy, Hagerstown, Maryland, that gruff voice, it recorded it so well that I might have had to change like 4 words in the transcription when the AI did its thing. I was like, oh, come on. But it was really interesting. It was, it was like 10 in the morning. I know he had a million things to do. If you listen to it, it took him a while to warm up to the idea, if you've heard the actual, like, the audio, but it was cool, man. Like, it was really fun. I think that what I kind of pride myself on, and I love that, my man, like Muscle Man Malcolm does it in a different way, but I need to get something out of you that you're not telling everybody else. You know what I mean? Like, this conversation needs to go away, and not just for me to be different, but for the writing to be good. I think, like, I have to find a lane. I have to find an angle. It needs to be about more than just who you're wrestling, where you're wrestling them, and who you grew up liking. You know what I mean? So I think it came out well. As far as feedback, we talked for about 20 minutes. And in the last 2 minutes, I'm asking him about music, and I don't want to regurgitate what people have been asking about. Hey, clearly you got this rap song and you like this. And I was like, okay, everybody knows that. Everybody's done that. So my thing was, what are you listening to now? Like, what's on your mind now? Because, Roddy Strong is one of my favorite wrestlers, and, he's a big Nipsey Hussle fan. And they do not come from the same world. Roddy, trailer park guy, Florida or wherever, and Nipsey Hussle, hood guy from the East Coast or from the West Coast. But there's that commonality of, I got to get out of this situation. I got to go get it, and so that's what they kind of link on. So it was really interesting, asking him about music. And he says, I'm listening to all these Michael Jackson remixes. And it immediately clicked. I'm like, okay, like, because you are literally a remix. You take the things that used to work, you have the new things down, and you've merged them into this really successful thing. So it was cool. Somebody who read it, said, man, I love that YouTube channel, and tweeted the guy. And so then it becomes a thing where you have a person who does not watch wrestling. It's like, oh, this big time wrestler is a fan of my work. And then he got to kind of understand where I was coming from as far as, because I had to explain it to him after he read it. But the whole point was like, this guy borrows from what used to work. He puts his own spin on it, and that's why it's so successful. So, it's new connections, man. Like finding out that, somebody from a completely different walk of life is a big fan of what you do. So it made that guy's weekend, so yeah, man, it was just, we got together on Wednesday Worldwide, the Ring of Wrestling show. And I'm talking to Cal, and I'm talking to Brian, I'm talking to Ben. And they're like, so what did this mean to you? And I tell them, I was like, I'm LA Knight. Like, I'm those guys at the Ringer found me when I was 36. You know what I mean? And I've been doing this for 15 years, but they found me at 36. Like you, Adam, are one of the early adopters. You were reaching out to me before I even got the gig. And a lot of people, and bless their hearts, a lot of people started reaching out to me and showing love and wanting me to be on their shows after the Ricky Starks piece dropped. And I get it. I understand. Like somebody like has a bit of cachet. You're interested in that. You want to know how they got there. But those guys came and found me, man. They saw potential in what I was doing. They saw the work, and it paid off. And for him, hard work. And I think that the best thing that came out of the entire situation, he admits that, hey, maybe some of the reason I didn't get to where I need to get to was my fault. Maybe I made mistakes, but now that I'm here, you stuck with me. So yeah, man, I really did appreciate that.
And it was, like I said, it was a great piece. I'm glad you mentioned that, where he talks about this quote. I'm going to read it. And again, if you go out of your way to check out this piece too, it's the Ringer website, and the audio itself is actually at the South Kongress Podcast, which I'm going to link in the show notes here so you can find it. Don't forget to like and subscribe here and leave us comments about how great we are. We really like that here. But LA Knight says, nobody ever wanted to give me a shot. I didn't have the hookups. I didn't have somebody in the family who was in the business. He goes on and he just says, and he says too, he takes responsibility for not making the moves that he feels like he should have. And I got to tell you, man, reading that is one of the most relatable things I've ever experienced, because, I've been doing this media thing now for 5 or 6 years, and it's like trying to, I tweeted something the other day. It was like, there are so many times where I felt like just stopping. Because it's like, shit, it's not getting anywhere. I'm not getting the results I want. I'm not getting the people I want on the show. It's always maybe next time, or we'll work you in somehow. And it's just this really defeating feeling. But then I read that and I'm like, God damn, this guy's main eventing a major pay-per-view when very likely 8 months before this, he probably would have been fired because he was saddled with realistically a shitty gimmick, right? So it was very much one of those moments where it was like, it was affirming in a lot of different ways. And I feel like that's been one of the really positive feedbacks out of the piece. I think I've seen the most commentary on that as well. One of the other things, and shout out to Muscle Man Malcolm as well. He is a good friend of the show. I know he lives in my area now, so I got to get together with him, and we're going to make a great content, I'm sure. But one of the things I want to ask you, one of the things that I see a lot about you is your writing style and about how you approach that. Tell me more about your process, because I'm as a teenage reporter as well. I feel like we have a very similar writing style. Tell me more about your approach when you start putting these pieces together.
I'm never going to be a wrestling expert. And what I mean is, like, I'm never going to be the guy who can tell you who fought at the Tokyo Dome March 3rd, 1992. I'm not built for that, right? Right. The math class I took in college was math for non-math majors. I
Math 095. Math 095. Yeah, the entry level.
I somehow got through physics. Like, I don't know how I got through physics. I don't know what I did, right? But my biggest thing is, like, there are so many people who can do that and are great at that. There are wrestling historians, and that is a very important thing. How did you feel right now? What's going on with you right now? And I want to draw in from history, everything that led you to this point, but where are you today? You know what I mean? I think that I want to have conversations with people, and I want you to feel like I'm having a conversation. Right. That's my biggest thing. Like, there's so many factoids and interesting tidbits, but I think the emotion in the moment is always what's really important to me. Like when I talked to Ricky Starks, and again, this is, a good friend of mine, somebody I, had known for a year and change before we even wrote. I didn't want to talk about him, fighting his way through the Texas independence.
Right.
I did not want to talk about him, having to move to Texas from Katrina, and because that's all out there.
Right.
I want to talk about why you and I are walking through this furniture store with these $3,000 couches. That's what I want to talk about.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to know what makes you tick. And what got you there is so important. But what's going on in here and in here to where you're in the position that you're in? Right. Like when I talked to Dax, it was like, we find out we're guys who graduated into a recession. And they told us just go to college and the world is in front of you. And it was like, no, that ain't the case. So with Dax, I needed to talk about getting it out the mud and fighting through it. But what it was really about, that's like maybe 2 paragraphs. What the rest of it is about is what he's presenting in the ring right now and why that's important to him. I just think that having a great memory is super important, but these, not only are these people, these are characters too. And I want you to feel both of them when we're putting these words together. Tomorrow I got one of the participants for Survivor Series. I won't say which one, but their trajectory over the last couple of years has been so interesting. And the key thing I want to talk about is, what did it take for you to be comfortable with what you're doing? And so that's going to be really the focal point. I got lucky, and I think this one is going to be special because Survivor Series isn't for another 2 weeks.
Right.
This is the earliest I've gotten a hold of somebody to where I can really, because look, full disclosure, and this is not to brag, this is just to really express it. Almost everything that you've read from me is me sitting down and writing for 3 hours after an interview, and then me shooting it off to Cal, me and Cal bouncing it back and forth for a day, then send it to the desk. Mm-hmm. I don't say that to brag, but it's just like my mind is always working as a conversation. And for most of these things, I've been writing them in my head before I even talk to the guy.
I was just going to say, shout out to John Alba. He's the same way. I know we've talked about it as well. It's like when my process, when I start to write things or when I start to think about things, it's almost like the best way to explain it. It's almost like a cyclone, right? Like I have a bunch of different thoughts in my head all at one time. And then from those thoughts, I pull the thesis out on exactly what I want to convey in the conversation or exactly what I want to convey in the piece. And then once I start, dude, it's like, I'm not stopping. Like, I don't care if I'm sitting here for 3 hours. I'm going to keep moving at this and getting it done because that's just the way my process works. And that's how I get through this stuff. So it's complicated and again, I don't mean this to come off in a pejorative way or, in a way that would sound weird, but it's like for people who are not writers, it's hard to explain that process to people because it's such a unique thing, right? It's like the same thing for people who are photographers or actual painters or anything like that. Whatever that creative process is, once you're in that moment, man, get the fuck out of my way because I'm not stopping,
Exactly. It's fun and it's nerve-wracking. And full disclosure, I thought people were going to hate this.
Really? Really?
Because what I felt like was I think I pulled the right things out of it, but like, I don't think what I wrote necessarily matches what you heard. You know what I mean? Because at first I'm just kind of like, man, he's not really into it. But like you can hear like towards the end, he's really warmed up to it and we're getting the words out. I was just like, I think when I went back and read what he said about people coming up to him on the street and saying that he was restoring the feeling about what they wanted from wrestling, that's when I had more confidence in it. That's when I was like, okay, I understand why. I know I'm into him, but it's not just me having that effect. And like, you don't, everybody doesn't get to be cool older guy that people are coming up to him like, yo, you doing what I used to like.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't get that. And so I think once that processed, I was like, okay, we got this. Like, we got this. But yeah, at first it's a little touch and go. But actually, like, I think everybody's going to hate all of them when they come out. And then it all comes out well. I have a great editor, and he knows how to, like, rein in some of my crazy ideas. Like, yeah, I'm the Vince Russo, right? But yeah, it comes together pretty well. And you know, this one too, if you look at it, it's one of the shorter ones.
It is.
It's almost exactly 2,000 words. And I think that's also effective. I don't think there's really any wasted motion in what we did. So I do think that contributed to it too. And that's something I want to get better at too. You know, brevity is important. And even though what I do is a long form, you know, conversation, I think that hit like a real sweet spot. And so I'm going to try to work toward that going forward.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the fact that it was a shorter piece than most of the other ones, right? Like comparative to the Sting, I think Sting was probably twice as long as that, right? And it's
Cal let me go. Yeah,
I was gonna say, but there's also there's a difference between the two, and it's not to knock one or the other, but it's the fact that like Sting has had this illustrious career, and there aren't a ton of people out there who have access to Sting like that. Sting doesn't do a ton of media. Sting doesn't do these conversations or long forms. So in order to get this opportunity like you did to have that conversation, I would have expected to do the same thing. I'm going to get as much out of this as I can. LA Knight's trajectory is he's still white hot. Like, you know, the loss at Crown Jewel doesn't seem to have affected him that much, but he still has a ton of tread left on those tires. So giving him that like the brevity of that conversation is going to allow you then go back to it later on. Whereas Sting, you're going to have this one small movement there. What would you say is the most frustrating responses or the most frustrating commentary you get about your pieces? Like, because obviously your stuff is really good, right? Like, I really enjoy reading your stuff, and it's not just because you're my buddy, but it's like it's good. It's actually good to read, and it's well written. What would you say is the most frustrating part about the writing?
So I'll tell you what, and this is like honest. If people have bad things to say about it, they don't say them to me. You know, I don't. The only like real negative feedback I've ever like received is from somebody who lost their seat on the bus. That's a more personal, you know, it's like jealousy isn't the right word because he's not a writer, but it was also, a couple of us, especially over the pandemic, got really tight and had plans to work on a lot of things. And, you know, he kind of put himself out there as a person we didn't feel like we could work with. And so that's really the only negative feedback. Like one time somebody said they felt like they were getting too much retread of what they'd heard from like my Booker T piece. And I was like, I get that, because that needed to be about what Booker T did and why that has such a big footprint on what's happening WrestleMania weekend. So I got it. Like, but nah, man, it's you know, they if they hate it, they don't tell me. My issue is, you know, these so Adam, when you and I first started collaborating, it was with a specific service.
Yes, it was.
And it did not necessarily work out in your favor. And you've talked about that. So I'm not speaking out of turn, I don't think.
No.
So, you know, a couple of months later, they bring in people who didn't build that thing. And I like some of those guys. Some of those guys I'm tight with. But they made an effort to go bring in some guys. I'm like, damn, he did the work. Now, he can't eat off it because, okay, all right, you know, business, whatever.
Right,
so
business, right.
What frustrates me is I get these unique things out of these people. Right. And I get these really cool quotes like, I thought like Eddie Kingston, you know, I didn't dress it up. I didn't write on it at all. I just said, yo, this is what we talked about, right? With Danielson, you know, Danielson was so open and, you know, sweet. And, you know, me talking to Max is an open book. So I did all these things. And then I got to jump on Twitter and see as told to the Ringer. And I'm like,
yes,
the Ringer shit. They told him that.
Yes.
Shout out to the and granted, I understand it comes with the territory. Get with the big organization. They recognize the organization first. But I'm like, it's people who like know me and talk to me, like taking my name off of my work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the hardest part. Like as much as I love the money, I love the damn recognition.
Well,
and not for it being good, not for it being bad, but for me doing the damn thing.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, I don't give a shit if you like it or not. I don't care. The whole point of me doing these conversations, whether it's Eric Bischoff, whether it's Robert Costa, whether it's anybody, I don't care. If you like it, great. Share it with your friends. If you don't like it, I don't give a shit. Move on. Find somebody else to listen to. What I care about is whether or not you're going to give me the credit when you take my quotes, you take my information, and you put it out there on the internet, and you don't quote, you don't say where it's from. Like, where the fuck do you think this was said? Like, it wasn't just said into the ether.
Hey, man. We got on and got successful and got work at like the worst time on the internet. Because
well, then Twitter fucking falls apart. It's a shit show now. Yeah, dude.
What's hard for me is like Twitter. I built my brand on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like I came up from, 3,000 to 4,000 to 10,000 to now 20,000 followers. And a big part of that is presenting personality, presenting honesty, but also like flipping that and having interesting things to say about this thing that we cover. Right.
Right.
So, I'm not like, I understand that there is money to be made by taking off the name of the artist and still publishing the art. I totally get it, but it sucks. It sucks because I'm like, I toiled over this thing. Yeah. Like I sit down, I'm nervous. I'm trying to put these words together. I shoot it off to my editor. I worry about him hating it. And then we got to work through it. We got to argue back and forth over, should this be said? Should this not be said? Are we allowed to say this? We go through all that. I sit up Thursday nights and I'm sitting there like, it's coming out in the morning. It's coming out in the morning. Oh my God, it's coming out in the morning. I got to go through all that just for you to take my name off of it. Like, come on, bro.
I sweat in my fucking bed all night for this shit. And you're going to take my name off. Like, fuck you, man.
I think what I'm also realizing is that people are now, and it's happened to everybody on the internet, but for me more now, people are going out of their way to misconstrue things that I say.
I've noticed that.
Yeah. And so I think that in some circles, people have done it to a point where they feel like there's some type of space between us or some type of like negative energy. And so they sometimes go out of their way to discredit me on things. And I'm just like, guys, it's never that deep. Like, right. Everybody should eat. I want everybody to win. And I've never tried to stop nobody from getting it that was doing a good job.
Right.
So,
and that's the thing, is that's my thing as well, is like, I don't want to be involved in anybody. If you have personal issues outside of this, that's one thing, but like, we're all here doing and working towards the same goal. Right? Like, we're all doing the same thing. I'm not interested in fighting. I'm not interested in the drama. Like, I want to be like, I want to hang out with everybody at fucking WrestleMania weekend. Like, I want to be a part of this, which is why I'm doing this. And it's like, I don't have time for that. But I noticed too with Twitter and the way that things have kind of fallen apart on that app is like, Adrian Hernandez, a friend of the show, friend of ours, had his content jacked recently by someone, I think it was his Eddie Kingston interview. They took him completely out of the interview. They cut his information, and it's like, what the hell is going on here?
Let me tell you what they did.
Yeah. What exactly did they do? Yeah.
Let me tell you what happened. So as he posted the interview, he posted the video. Adrian is very conscientious of branding. So on his videos, it has his name. It has like a banner with all the ways you can reach him. Like, he's very much on top of it. Instead of reposting the video, somebody went to YouTube, screen recorded the entire video, and then posted it. But they still left his information on there. It's like, bro, like, this is his work.
Right.
He did this. You're going out of your way to try to make a profit off of this guy's hard work. Like,
yeah,
it's really nasty out here, man.
It is.
Really nasty.
And that's why it's important for us to stick together the way that we do, because we amplify each other. And I want to make sure I say this as well, too. You have been a big supporter of my work for as long as I've known you. I tell you that all the time, but I genuinely appreciate all of the sharing and the reposting that you do for me, and all the stuff that we put together, and vice versa, right? But it's really important for me to share that content as well, and try to pay it forward as much as I can for anybody that I am, because I wasn't in this position 6, 12, 18 months ago. But now that I'm starting to become more notable and people are tuning in more, I want people to, I want to be able to help and use that platform for anywhere I can. What I'm never going to do is I'm never going to jack anybody's shit. Like, that's just not, that to me is just, it's scandalous behavior. But
Yeah, man.
I want to talk to you more now that we've hashed it all out. I want to talk about Sting as well, because I know Sting, that article you did, I think it's got almost 1 million impressions on Twitter at this point, but it's done really well. And we understand he's retiring this year. He's going to be retiring, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be, is it All In 2024? Is that the pay-per-view?
Revolution, I want to say.
Revolution.
First pay-per-view. Yeah.
So what do you think, and I'm not fantasy booking here, but based upon your conversation with him, what do you foresee something a final Sting match being? And do you think this really is going to be the final match? Because obviously we've heard that before from people like Ric Flair. We've heard it from, Hulk Hogan at multiple times. Do you really think that this is going to be his final, that's it, I'm retired?
I believe him as much as you can believe a wrestler. Just because, what we really wrote about was how everybody else got his finish wrong. Like, that was the crux of what we talked about. It was WCW got it wrong. And WCW got, Starrcade wrong with Hogan. And,
yes.
He's open about that. They got that wrong, which should have been Sting's biggest moment. They got it wrong. And you can't control the company to go out of business, but, they
right.
did. TNA, it's not that they got it wrong. It's that at that iteration of TNA, because I think Impact is great right now. And, they're rebranding the TNA. Great for them. They got so much talent down there. Like, they got the Jake somethings and the Trinity Fatus. And, they are, when they get Kevin Knight, they got Kevin Knight. Like, they are doing it, right? But that old iteration, there's a ceiling. Everybody knew it. AJ Styles had to go. Samoa Joe had to go. Put whatever name you want on there. They kind of reach, when they started turning it around, shout out to LA Knight, was the Eli Drakes, the Bobby Lashleys, the Drew, what was his name when he was there?
I think it was Drew Galloway, wasn't it?
Drew Galloway, yeah. That's when they really started to like really be, I think, competent in a way, but competent in the right way. I don't want to say in a way, because they were absolutely competent.
Right.
But when Sting was there, it was come over here, get your money, do what you want to do. And as fun as that is, that has a shelf life, right?
Right. Sting
gets the opportunity to go to WWE. Sting got one idea, they got another. Sting said it, and I'm not speaking out of place. Undertaker didn't want no parts of the match.
Which to me is insane. Like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but like every time I see this and every time I think about it, it's crazy that he would not want to do this, which seems to be like, in my brain, I guess, and I'm not a promoter, I've never worked in the business, but in my brain, I'm going Sting and The Undertaker at WrestleMania, during the streak, that's printing fucking money.
It's a layup. Literally.
I
think that at that point, I think that Taker knew his body was breaking down. I think he knew that Sting was, as good as Sting was, he didn't need to be in there with a contemporary in that way, like age-wise and miles-wise, right? But what got me was Sting tried to do it when the cinematic stuff started happening, and Taker still didn't want no parts. That's what throws me off.
Right.
Because it's like, yo, this is perfect. Right? Like, this is us maximizing what both guys do.
That's what I'm saying. And you're masking injuries, you're masking any ability for them to get actually hurt. And you can tell a really great story with this, right? Like the actual WCW versus WWE, like the final Monday Night War, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it was, like you said, it was a layup. And
like Sting would have hate that. It's fine.
He didn't give a shit. He didn't care. Like, okay, well, let's do this. Yeah, it's business. Right.
So, you know, all these stops, Sting never really gets like that swan song. And I tell you what, I've said it, and you know, there are things right now in AEW that I'm not a huge fan of, like as far as like certain things that are being presented or not being presented. But AEW does a better job at making their legends revered and important than anybody's done in the last 30 years.
I would agree with that.
They do an excellent job at it, and Sting's right there at the top of the heap. They've treated him so well. They've protected him. That cinematic match with him, Darby, Starks, and Brian Cage, they smoked that. They've treated Sting better than anybody's ever done it, you know, with a living legend.
Right.
It's amazing. And, you know, he told me, and this is what do I hate most about how people receive my writing when they don't fucking read it? Because Sting announces his retirement, and people are like, yo, like, what do you think Sting's going to do? I think he should do this. I think he should do that. I'm like, guys, Sting's going to have a tag match with Darby. And they're like, well, no, but he should. I'm like, guys, Sting told me he's going to have a tag match with Darby. I'm not saying I guarantee it. I'm just letting you know, like, that is the plan. Tag match with Darby. Well, I don't understand why he would, because he said that's what he wants to do. Like, it's that's a little rough, you know, but I really think it's going to be him and Darby. I don't know who the team would be, man, because things are weird over there right now. Right. But it's going to be a tag match with Darby. I think they come out on top. I think that he hands Darby the bat or something to that effect. Yep. And, you know, rides off into the sunset.
I agree. Like I said, I know you are not a fan of fantasy booking, so I didn't want to ask you that, but I just wanted to get an idea of where you thought they were going. I obviously, like, the Ric Flair stuff seems like a nice throwback to WCW. I don't know how much involvement he's going to have in that as far as in-ring work, but I feel like that is definitely going to be a huge thing. I also foresee a Ric Flair heel turn coming. I mean, it just feels like that's probably the move, right? What do you think?
It would be really interesting if he had whoever he faces, it's a tag team that Ric Flair manages or supports.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. That would be, I think that would be an interesting send-off. Sting getting one over on Flair for the last time.
Yep.
I think that would be really cool. Flair showing him love at the end regardless. Yeah, I think that would be cool. I think so.
I want to talk to, before we get into Survivor Series talk, I want to talk about the Bloodline. Obviously, as we know, as we're recording this, Roman Reigns went over on LA Knight at Crown Jewel. How are you feeling about the Bloodline storyline? And do you think that they are going to pull the trigger at WrestleMania 40 in my hometown of Philadelphia with Pastor Cody Rhodes?
They better, damn it. They better. Like, here's what's tough about it. We got some really good stuff over the last, 6, 7, 8 months. But now he's closing in on Hogan's reign. And it's like, are they going to do it? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think catching Hogan is important to Triple H in that way, because Roman, for whatever people say about him not defending the title, he got more titles defenses than Hulk Hogan did. You know what I mean? Like,
thank you. I'm glad someone said it. I'm glad someone said it.
More than Hogan. And so, like, they got to do it in Philly with Cody, man. First city of America. They got to do it.
Yeah,
with Cody, man. They got to. I really think that you can't send the audience home like that twice.
No.
People, we left the stadium. It's me and Suzette. We're outside waiting on an Uber. There's a guy in a wheelchair, and he's with, I guess, probably his girlfriend. And they're just kind of sitting there. And he looks at her, shrugs, and says, I mean, what? God, no, don't let me forget it. What was the, He said, I mean, Cody's a 2, and they the ones. And I laughed so damn hard. I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
And there was still like the idea of Roman's that guy.
Yeah.
Cody's going to get it eventually. Eventually gotta be WrestleMania. It's gotta be 40, man. You gotta do it. If they don't do it, I just feel like that's money left on the table, and Cody can never get back to that spot that he needs to be in. Cody's still a top-tier babyface. Cody's not lost momentum. They go crazy for Cody. You can only do that so many times.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You can only go to that well so many times. In hindsight, while I still don't agree with the booking decision at the end of that match in 39, because I feel like, even still on some level, I still feel like Cody should have gone over on Roman. However, looking at the way they've built him over the past year, almost a year now, right? But building up to that point, he's white hot. The crowd still love him. I was there. We were there in Philadelphia when he was, or Hershey, I think it was, when Raw came to town. The place went crazy for him when he came out. Like, it hasn't stopped, right? It hasn't stopped his momentum. But I think if they don't pull the trigger at 40, and I feel like there's a certain segment of folks too as well with Roman who are at the point now where it's like, how much more of this can we do, right? Jay is splintered off from him. By the way, shout out to main event Jay Uso. That guy, let me tell you something. And my wife, Courtney, hates when I say this, and she's going to listen to this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Strap a fucking rocket to the back of that guy's back and send him to the fucking moon, because he is it. He's got everything they're looking for, right? I think they've done it. It's Jay's off of the bloodline. Jimmy, there's this weird thing. There's only so many times for me you can go to that well with Paul on the cell phone. I'll call Roman. Like, what are we doing? There's only so much of that you can take in a certain aspect. But I agree with you. I don't think that people are going to accept a Cody loss. I don't know if it's going to be at the Rumble. I would love to see them at War Games. Obviously, here we go. I'm fantasy booking. I told you I wasn't going to do this. But what I'd love to see them at War Games is maybe put the briefcase on the line, right? Since the Judgment Day is involved, put the briefcase somehow in. If we win, I get this briefcase, and that's how I get to Mania. But I'm fascinated to see how they're going to build it. But do you think that the Bloodline overall has gotten stale, or do you still enjoy the storyline as it is?
I think having Solo squash Cena, having Roman. So to me at this point, we are getting more paranoid, like the world's falling down around me. Why do people think they can challenge me? I think we're getting that with Roman. So yes. I think that, once we get, listen, he's got to fight somebody at the Rumble, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be a match there. Somebody's going to give him hell. But yeah, I think fantasy booking. I think Cody wins the Chamber, man.
Damn.
I think Cody wins the Chamber, and whoever wins the Rumble is let Gunther win the Rumble and go get Seth, man. Let him do it. That would be really interesting. I think that would be a great way for Seth to be fighting champion. But listen, you can't fight them all.
Right.
I think that would be really interesting. But yeah, I think Cody wins that Elimination Chamber, and it's like, yo, I got to go get him.
Yep. So the name of the episode obviously is going to be Fantasy Booking with Cameron Hawkins, but I will say that's a good way for them to, I got to do it, man. I'm sorry. I will say that it's a good way for them to protect Gunther and this Intercontinental reign. He wins the Rumble. He maintains the title reign throughout the entire time, and he beats Seth. He beats the shit out of Seth at WrestleMania and takes that belt, has to relinquish the other belt. It makes sense to me, right? But the Chamber's a great idea. Let's talk about Survivor Series in general. And the big question, obviously, as we know, which everybody talks about on Twitter, is Cousin Phil, CM Punk, Phillip Brooks. Do you see him coming back? And do you see him being a viable challenger to Roman Reigns as sort of the last? So obviously AJ Styles is probably going to come back at some point and challenge Roman, right? In between now and WrestleMania. We have plenty of time to get there. But do you think CM Punk comes back? Do you think it's beneficial for the company to come back? Tell me where your head's at on that.
I think it's beneficial. I think that, it's different in WWE, man, especially now. Like, if a guy don't like you, he just don't like you.
Right.
Like the talent isn't in position to tell the boss who should be here and who shouldn't. Or when that person makes a mistake, say, see? Like, listen, Triple H and Vince had that relationship. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like Triple H was fighting people backstage, but Triple H was like, yo, that's why that guy can't be champion and I should. You know what I mean? And so, but it wasn't to the point where people were losing their jobs. You know,
Right.
CM Punk. Forget who's right. Forget who's wrong. Them dudes over there didn't like him to the point where they didn't want him to be there.
Right.
Like, not they wanted to beat him in matches. They did not want him in the company. Right.
Right.
So I think CM Punk would be a good get for WWE because CM Punk is not in a position to manipulate things or people. I'm not saying that's what he did, but whatever problems you think he caused over there, the infrastructure is too tight for him to do that over here. You know, WWE, a lot of WWE fans are CM Punk fans.
Yeah.
Like there's no way around it. They don't care about the politics. They just want to see their guy come out. They want to hear that music. They want to see him hit the moves. That's what they want. Yep. Now, do I see it happening? Not really, because like with everything that I said, like Seth Rollins is clear he don't want him there.
Right.
You know what I mean? And not that I think it would make Seth like upset or jump ship or anything like that, but I just don't know if CM Punk has such an upside at this point that bringing him in is beneficial at the risk of upsetting people. Again, upsetting. Not making him do anything crazy, just upsetting. So, not really, man. If he showed up, that'd be cool. Like I'd watch. I enjoyed all his AEW stuff. Mm-hmm. Like the worst thing about the whole situation.
What's that?
CM Punk left the company on maybe the best match that he's had outside of the dog collar match. He leads it by smoking it. Him and Samoa Joe killed that.
Yeah, they fucking killed that match, dude.
That's the hardest part, right?
Yeah.
So hey man, look, he left on a high note. If they're gonna hire him, like, look what I can still do. And you're not gonna ask me to go out there and do it for a half hour. You're gonna ask me to go out there and give you 12 minutes of that fire, and that's it. I can do that with a bunch of guys. Right. You know? So yeah.
So I want to pivot real fast because we're talking about a lot of wrestling stuff, but I want to ask you about Wale Mania, which was just announced recently. I know you'll be here in Philly for that. I will be there as well. Looking forward to everything. Tell me more. Do you have any details about Wale Mania? Where is it going to be? Tell me some information.
Yeah, I do know some stuff. Look, that's why you download the graphics, right? So
that's right.
What are we doing? April the 4th, 2024, which is going to be I think it's Thursday
Friday.
Before Mania.
Let me checking the dates.
Yeah, it's the Thursday before Mania. Because Friday is SmackDown and we don't run with that. But yeah, it'll be that April 4th, Thursday, April 4th at the Franklin Music Hall.
And for the people in Philadelphia, that's the former Electric Factory right there on 7th and Spring Garden. Yep.
So yeah, man, it's going to be a good time. It's of course hosted by my man Kazim, hosted by my man Emilio Sparks. Yeah, and hosted by Wale himself. It is the biggest mix of wrestling talent that you'll ever see. I'm talking WWE, AEW, TNA, ROH. That was like old ROH, old WCW. Like, it is the biggest mix of talent you'll ever see. It is a party. It is a celebration. Last year, Trinity Fatu was the guest of honor, flanked by the Usos and Solo. And 9,000 of their cousins who I was getting bottles for all night. It was amazing. But yeah, Wale puts on a performance. We got a DJ, we got celebrities, the bars, back to back bottles, the kids from NXT running around. And it's fun watching them because they're not famous yet. So like watching them navigate
get a little wild. Yeah.
Because what's really interesting about them is it's their first time in a lot of cases getting to see their fans outside of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's their first opportunity to really be stars in a public space. So it's really cool. But yeah, man, like I said, we got drinks, we got everybody, the who's who in wrestling and in wrestling media is there. Big party, goes all night. The most fun night of the year for me the last couple of years, even though I'm working the whole time. But yeah, man, it's a good time.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you there because I'm excited about that. That's one of the things that I've earmarked for that week. Because obviously, as you know, I'm taking off the whole fucking week because it's a holiday. It's a national holiday. So, one thing I want to ask you: I was in your territory recently. I was down there, and while you're in Austin, I was in Houston. People are conflicted about this, and I think it's really important that we get this information out to see where you stand on this, Mr. Hawkins. What's your feeling on In-N-Out?
It's cool. It's cool. I'm a Whataburger guy, man. Like they built In-N-Out like right by the outlets that I always go to, and it's cool. Like it's cool in a pinch. It's good every now and again. Yeah. I'm a Whataburger guy, baby. Gotta have Whataburger, but it's cool. It's all right.
Well, listen.
Usually when I'm going to Houston, I haven't been to Trillburger yet, but I got to do that.
Oh man, yeah, I should have gone there.
Yeah, that is on the menu for sure.
Whose restaurant is that?
Bun B.
That's what I thought. I was going to say Bun B. I wasn't sure yet. I've heard about it. I'll be back there again this summer, so I'll let you know. We'll try to link up while I'm down there. I will take you to the best cheesesteak places in Philadelphia as well. I'll keep you away from the tourist traps unless you want to do like photos for the socials and the gram and all like that. But you got to take me to like the spots. That's what people want to see. They don't want to see me do regular stuff. You got to take me to the spots. Here's the thing, right? And here's the best part about rolling with somebody from the area, right? You want to go to the places that are just sketchy enough where you think you're going to catch something, but just like the best food you're ever going to eat in your entire life, right? Like
I need a D+ C- on the health inspection.
Yes, like just like conditionally approved, right?
Exactly.
Someone's waiting for the tetanus to break out or the fucking strychnine. Yeah, that's where I have a bunch of places to take you when you get here as far as food wise. So we'll make sure we get there for you. I usually do a thing at the end of these conversations when I do wrestling shows. It's a set of rapid fire questions that I ask all of my guests that come on, and I would be honored if you would give me the answers off the top. If you don't want to answer, say skip. Whatever you want to do is fine with me. But we're going to start at the top here. What is your all-time favorite wrestling match?
HBK Angle WrestleMania 21.
That's a good one, man. No one's ever said that yet, but that's a fucking fantastic match.
A match.
Your favorite WrestleMania?
19. Just an embarrassment of riches and talent and superstars.
What is the worst match of all time?
Ooh, worst match of all time. I've seen some stinkers, man.
Some bad ones, dude.
Off the top of my head, like Finger Poke of Doom is easy, right? Like that's an easy one to get to. I'll say that one. I try not to. It's hard for me to even like process like coming down on talent in that way. I'll say that.
So I do a segment on the show. Sam Krepps, who does the outro credits for the show, he's not a wrestling person, and I find what are considered like the worst matches of all time, and I'll show him that wrestling match. But it's not that he's shitting on the talent. It's just the fact that like, wow, this was really poorly executed, right?
Don't always come together.
It doesn't always work, right? What is the worst gimmick of all time?
Brodus Clay.
Yes, good call. Your favorite wrestling angle?
Favorite angle? Off the top of my head, my favorite angle is Rock joining the corporation.
That's a good one. What is the worst or your least favorite wrestling angle?
Probably Eugene. They didn't have the sophistication to write that.
Yeah. I think if it had the tact or maybe sophistication is the right word. I think they could have done something really great with that. But looking back at it now, it's like, especially because of circumstances in my own life, I'm like, this is not good.
For sure.
Biggest missed opportunity in professional wrestling?
Monty Brown. They had a superstar in TNA.
Yeah.
And just, Jeff Jarrett was doing Jeff Jarrett back then, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they missed out on an opportunity to have a real wrestling superstar. Him and then like kind of tied because they crossed paths a little bit. I thought Elijah Burke in WWE, they should never let that guy go. I think he would have been huge.
Seth Rollins or Kenny Omega?
Seth Rollins. And shout out to Omega. He's amazing.
Right.
Seth Rollins does it for me more character-wise.
A WWE or AEW crossover. Does it ever happen?
No. You got. They're too proud on both sides.
WCW, and I'm talking pre-Russo, NWO height, or ECW.
WCW.
Paul Heyman or Eric Bischoff?
Paul Heyman.
NWO or DX?
NWO.
Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair?
Pass.
I get the pass on that every time. And Sting and The Undertaker wrestle. Who goes over?
Undertaker.
Cam, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. I really appreciate your time. As always, tell everybody where they can keep up to date on your social media and also see your faces that you post, because I still have that meme in my phone. You can't hide your emotion. You have a bad poker face like I do. Where can everybody keep up with you on socials, man?
Yeah, man. Instagram and Twitter, it's Seahawk, CEEHAWK. You can find my work at theringer.com. Again, most recently talking to LA Knight. Before that, had a really good conversation with MJF. So, and then we got a big one coming up for Survivor Series, and we got a big one ending the year with AEW. I think it's going to be some really cool stuff. You can find me at Fightful.com. I got a long interview with Steve Austin over there, as well as an interview with Eddie Kingston after winning the ROH World Title. And I got a show over there with my man Rob Wilkins called My Point Is, the only monthly wrestling show. Have a really good time over there joking around with Rob, talking about the goings-on in this business. Outside of that, just did an episode of Wednesday Worldwide, the Ringer Wrestling Show, talking about the LA Knight piece, talking about his trajectory going forward. And then, listen, if if the content's a bit much, if I'm not necessarily your cup of tea, understood, I recommend following me on the socials WrestleMania week. I felt like the mayor of LA, man. I was everywhere. I was doing everything. It was a real humbling, but also like affirming experience being there. So if you're not gonna follow me, hey, that last week of March, first week of April, you might want to jump on, because you were going to see some things. And like we said, man, April 4th, Wale Mania, biggest wrestling party of the year, every single year. Expect surprises and a good time. So yeah, definitely come out to that.
I will see you there, sir. We will be the co-mayors of Philadelphia when you come out here. Cameron Hawkins, thank you again so much for your time, sir. I appreciate you.
Always appreciate you, man. Keep up the hard work.
Thank you, sir. You as well.
Foundation Radio is hosted, recorded, and produced by Adam Barnard. Additional production and narration provided by Sam Krepps. The show was mixed and engineered by Carl Pannell. Our intro and outro music was performed and produced by Dumb Ugly. Additional musical accompaniment provided by Enrichment. Special thanks to Greg Mead, Joe Keane, Geoff Quinn, and Dr. Ruth Almy. Follow us on Twitter at FND Radio Pod and find our entire archive at foundationradio.net. This has been a Butts Carlton Media Production. Butts Carlton, Proprietor.